playmaker before, as that being one of his skills. But it was like he wasn't he didn't score that many points, but it was like quite a high proportion of their baskets they scored early on in that game were like came from him getting double teamed and then managing to find the free man or pass it to
Yeah.
someone who then finds the free man. Like basically managing to pass it well and quickly out of a double team. And yeah, I just thought that was quite impressive, and they just he's just really good.
Yeah, and they've got depth because they seem to just turn players that they take off the scrap heap into serviceable rotation guys. They've got two ball handlers in the backcourt. Anunoby's developed into this kind of do-it-all wing. It's pretty amazing they won it without using Anunoby at all,
Yeah,
considering he was meant to be like their key young player for the next generation before
yeah.
last year, and Siakam just took it and
They've been
decided
on.
it's going to be his team.
Have you seen they've been on like a ridiculous winning streak as well, haven't they?
Yeah, franchise record winning streak.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think it might have been the game that I watched the other day actually, where they said it was the because obviously it's on it was on like a broadcast from like the local broadcasters. They were saying it was a Toronto sports record for a win streak, which I suppose is not really that much more impressive than franchise record, but better than the Blue Jays basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good going, isn't it, really? I mean, they're phenomenal. They're probably the story of the season. It's them and OKC battling for story of the season. Um, I don't. There's always going to be until he actually has to do it. Can Siakam then translate that into doing it in a playoff series? I suspect he
Yeah,
can, because he's also got the benefit of so many good players around him.
yeah. They're just a very balanced team as well, aren't they? And he's sort of become the star
Yeah, I'd love to see
because
them
he's
go.
had to.
I'd love to see them go deep into the playoffs.
Because I mean, he's averaging like 23 points a game this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like a lot.
The question is, if they got into playoff series with the Bucks again, I don't know what they do about Giannis because they won the series last year by just putting Kawhi on him.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Like,
Yeah, there's like not quite an obvious solution there.
I guess they have Gasol waiting for him at the basket, and then
Yeah,
maybe they go with Siakam because he's long and mobile and try
yeah,
that.
they have
That
still got options. Or, to be honest, probably better options than most of the other teams other than the 76ers. Probably better
oh
options
yeah,
than the other teams in the East.
yeah, they're second best suited to deal with him.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Anyway, let's go back to trades. We're sort of jumping between the trades and then just little conversations about other things. But yeah, that sort of works. Anyway, um, I only think there's one other main trade left. Do you know the one I was
between
thinking of?
the 14th and 15th teams in the Western Conference, do you mean?
Yeah, which I think sort of sounds like it's irrelevant, but I mean it could be one of like the more important trades like going into the next like year or two.
Oh yeah, and longer. I mean, this could be, without putting too fine a point on this could be the trade that either extends or ends the Warriors dynasty.
Yeah, because
'Cause
it's basically like yeah, when everyone's expecting the Warriors to be back next year and at least like in the pack of competing teams. Um, and it's basically it's going to be the three original guys, Curry, Thompson, and Draymond, but now with Andrew Wiggins, and it's basically like, can Andrew Wiggins replace Kevin Durant? Um,
Well, can
but
he
not
defend
that.
well enough
Yeah,
and can he hit his threes?
yeah,
Because he's not going to play like a max player. I think everyone's probably accepted that, including Golden State. And can he be good enough, maybe even that they then use him as an asset in another trade? if he rebuilds his value, they then flip him and the Minnesota pick and maybe some other stuff to
Yeah,
try and get another star. Because it could, if he's really bad, if he continues to suck and doesn't defend despite having the athleticism for it, and he continues shooting just over 30% from three, the Warriors are going to find it really hard to be competitive because they're still not going to have depth because of how big their payroll is to those
yeah,
four guys.
yeah. And then they're sort this. That's why it could end them really. Is it's sort of like because then they're stuck with him.
Yeah, or they get him to be good, like shoots
Yeah,
37% from
yeah.
three,
Because they don't like yeah, and he could just stay there.
and
He
then
can be
then they
the
might be they're in the top three or four favorites for the title next year if they can get him to be that at any point because
yeah,
they've still got their guys, and they might have the first overall pick. They might be able to get James Wiseman to play center. So, you know,
yeah. Then they
any
could just be
anything's
like
possible.
back to being the dominant. Um, but yeah, I I mean I didn't watch it, but I saw like stuff saying that he played well in his first game, like actually
Yeah,
defended and stuff.
and I saw a list of the people that they were talking about. So the people starting with him were a rookie who was picked in the second round, and three people who weren't on the team at the start of the year were in
Oh,
the starting five of them. Um, so it's difficult to evaluate him at the moment, isn't it? Really, there's going to be
yeah,
loads of hot takes after every game about whether they fixed him or not.
yeah.
And
There is one thing though is that it's like even though he's got a reputation as a really bad defender, one thing obviously a lot of that is like the attitude that people say he has, and I mean I feel like if there's anyone could fix it, like playing for the Warriors with like all these guys could maybe change something there, as
yeah,
they've sort of got like like the culture stuff that people always talk about. They've obviously got winning culture, as they've won a lot, but also a lot of him being bad defensively is like him playing next to Anthony Towns, who's also bad defensively. Um, and like
well, yeah, I think there's a bit of a self-fulfilling thing with this.
yeah,
We may find out over the next few months who was the real problem there, or maybe they were both a massive problem. But the Karl Anthony Towns, there's a stat that Zach Lowe mentioned on a podcast, which I think it was Zach Lowe, about the same. If you have four Timberwolves, there's a group of four Timberwolves that you have on with Gorgie Deng, and then they're a top five defense in the league, I think. And if you put Towns in, they become the worst defense in the league.
oh dear,
That's not a freak either. I mean, he is just it's one thing that, in a way, I don't think is talked about enough, and there's loads about these. He's this generational offensive talent. Defensively, he is so hilariously bad. It
yeah.
almost undoes all of that.
Do you think some of
If we
that?
look,
Well, with Wiggins and Towns both being known as terrible defenders, do you think some of that has to sort of fall on the Timberwolves themselves, really? Not so much as I don't know whether it's like a system thing or the fact that like both those players were very talented players when they got them, and the Timberwolves are basically the team that developed them,
yeah,
and they've got to a certain amount of being good. And I mean, but the reputations when they drafted them were like really really high, weren't they? Both of them. And it's sort of I don't know where they've ended up with both of their star young players being known as terrible defenders. I don't know. I feel like there's got to be something that's sort of the Timberwolves' responsibility as they're like bringing these players through. When both of them obviously have like the athleticism and the size to be like good defenders at least. Um,
yeah,
I
or
feel like there's got to be
not
something that's
sieves.
yeah,
Like, like there's certain players where it's like they've got all the instincts and effort in the world, but you're just not big enough or quick enough or whatever.
yeah.
These guys are the
But
very opposite of
even
that.
then, those guys like have value, don't they? Like
Yeah,
Kyle Lowry or someone like that.
but these
Uh,
these guys, it's like, well, okay, maybe you can't get the defensive instinct. Maybe you just don't. You can't read the game that well. I don't know how well you can necessarily teach that. but with a bit of effort and their physical attributes, you should be able to defend well. That's what's going to be interesting in Minnesota is does Towns start trying more defensively? He did for a little bit at the start of the year. The Timberwolves started off the year really well defensively,
Yeah.
and then he just didn't fancy it because the D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns defense. I mean, what's that going to be?
Yeah.
That's going to be horrendous, isn't it?
I feel like some of it is maybe the whole thing of from like when teams like just tear everything down and then get a couple of prospects, like really young, talented players in. I feel like this is where like that, like the downside of doing that maybe.
What, you just keep losing? You just start off the league losing?
Yeah, because it's like.
I agree.
Those players come through and they're the worst team in the league. It's sort of like the Knicks at the moment. Like they've got RJ Barrett now. Like they had Kevin Knox. Like they've had loads of them basically.
I was going to make a different comparison. I would say it's a comparison with the Hawks, and that's part of the reason I think there's a trade we haven't touched on is the Capella Covington one, where they tried to do something about that. Is I know Trae Young was getting a bit annoyed, but also if you have all these young players and you just suck all the time, them not trying defensively just becomes like a shrug, and that's not helpful either.
Exactly. I think that's sort of part of that maybe, and it's sort of I guess it's the culture that people talk about, that building a culture in these like bad teams is about basically somehow managing to get everyone to basically put maximum effort in, even when they're losing or when they're nowhere near competing or to getting in the playoffs or anything.
Yeah,
it's like that's what people mean when they talk about like building a culture, and it's basically the Timberwolves, I guess, just haven't had that.
Well, they had it with Butler, and those two didn't like it.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I think we need to finish now because we're almost out of time.
Oh, are we? Okay. I guess we'll come on to the Rockets another time.
Oh yeah, the Rockets. Yeah. What? Yeah, they got they added Covington, didn't they? Basically.
Adding Covington gave away
Capella,
and some other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well. Okay. I guess we should go then.
Yeah, let's wrap up.
We might have someone else on next time. You're saying?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, might start getting some more people involved. Yeah, so it's a bit more interesting and not just us. Oh, the same voices all the time. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.